Hi, everybody. Welcome back to We Have This Treasure. Today, we're talking with my friend Katherine Folkert about the concept of biblical lament and how it can draw us nearer to the Lord. I think you're going to be encouraged by our discussion today, so sit back and I hope you're very blessed. Katherine, thank you so much for being with me today.
Absolutely. I'm super happy to join you, Kathy.
Thank you. Well, I know you have a very busy household. You're a mother of 5, and so you've got your children settled, and I promise you we wouldn't take too much of your time, but um, I wanted to talk with you about the subject of biblical lament. You were one of my BSF teachers for a few years at least,
Mhm.
and we were doing a study, and we were in Habakkuk. And you talked about chapter 1, 2, and 3 of Habakkuk, and we were talking about his lament to the Lord. And it really just resonated with me. And so I wanted to just kind of hear more from you about that.
Absolutely. It's one of those things of sometimes getting to teach on a subject gives you an opportunity to dive deep into something. And that was not the first time that I had really dived into lament, but it was the first time that I had like the full biblical framework around it.
Mhm.
And it was really just a joy to be able to really see just what a gift the Lord has given us in giving us lament. And I think it's something that our culture has really lost touch with is just the importance of lament and what a gift it can be to our relationships with God, our relationships with each other, and also just sort of our own personal well being as we walk through a broken and sinful world.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I was listening to Timothy Keller talking about lament and how in the Psalms you see so much of it. And I think
Yeah.
kind of what you're saying, I think that we just don't know how to do it and we're maybe a
Mhm.
little afraid of it. He was talking about lament being kind of the gospel third way, where religiosity says you have to be stoic, kind of suppress your feelings, but then on the other extreme, we make our feelings kind of like an idol almost, where we bow down
Yeah.
to them and we let them dictate us. So somewhere in there is that biblical way. And
Mhm.
how have you found in your own life, if you will, lament to be a really good experience in between those two extremes?
Mhm.
No.
I think like where lament has been a true gift is that in order for lament to really be a true lament, there's just this invitation to honesty.
Mhm.
And I think that's a piece that we get really scared of taking our really honest thoughts and opinions and feelings to the Lord. Um, I don't know about you, but like I definitely grew up kind of feeling like I needed to have perfect prayers,
Yeah.
right? And there was definitely times where I would like journal for a while, like to kind of get my words right, like especially as like a, like an early teen of like really trying to get my words right before I prayed them, and like the gift within lament is or any prayer truly is just this like coming to the Lord with extreme honesty. Um doesn't mean that you're like that you don't wanna be careful with your words, but there's also this the Lord can handle it.
Mhm.
Um, and, like, there's such a difference too between just sort of generally shouting things out into the void, and directing it to the Lord. Um, and so I think that there's, like, been this, like, huge gift of through the process of learning how to lament,
Mhm.
I've learned that the Lord can handle my thoughts and my feelings. Like,
Yeah.
me being really mad and grumpy and upset and grieving and in pain, like, it doesn't phase him, right? Like, he's big enough to handle it, and he loves me enough to, like, carry me through it, and he's not sitting there, like, waiting to, like, smite me because I've said something that might not be 100% doctrinally true, right? Like,
Yeah.
so
Definitely. That really resonates with me because there have been times where I've gone to the Lord with something and I've really been upset, whether it be angry or, just terribly disappointed about a situation. And I've wondered in my mind, am I sinning? Like, is this really
Mhm.
okay? Because I'm being a joyful Christian. I'm not rejoicing right
Mhm.
now. And I love that we have permission to go. I mean, like when I look at the Psalm, it's kind of an invitation to, like you're saying, take it to the Lord. And it's not going out and complaining to other people.
Mhm.
I think that's a different story. I think that when we go to him, like you're saying, he is absolutely big enough and wise enough and sovereign enough to know.
Well, and I think so often too of like rejoicing as an action rather
Mm.
than a state of being. And I think that
Mhm.
for many, many of us, and I would say most of us, lament is actually the pathway to get back to joy, to be able to rejoice.
Yeah.
Um, you know, that, you know, that y our culture is much more about, like, distracting and, like, being like,
Yes.
"Well, I'm gonna, like, kinda somehow manufacture the feelings of joy,"
Mhm.
and versus really being able to say, "No, joy is, like, both in some ways a choice,
Mhm.
but also the choice is often to, like, really feel the hard and to sit with the hard and to walk through the hard in order to get to that place of being able to choose to rejoice."
Yeah.
And so it's just one of those things too of, like, being willing to take it to the Lord, and it's like we could take a second and just, like, talk about, like, what a true lament looks like,
Yes.
versus, like, just complaining,
Yeah.
because there's, like, a very directionality to a true lament, and it doesn't have to be a one and done, but there's an element of there's, like, kind of um there's pieces to a true lament, that really does bring us towards the Lord rather than just having us, like, cycle in our feelings or, like, shove it away.
Yeah.
And I think the first piece is just, like, the fact of, like, we're taking it to him,
Mhm.
that, like, we have all of these thoughts and these feelings and these emotions and this, all of the things, and we're taking it to him, right? We're just, like, being willing to trust him with whatever it is. And the source of our lament can be either like our own personal sin, when like this like personal grief over something that I have done or something I've realized that is part of my character and I hate. Or it could be something that has been done to me. And it can also
Mhm.
just be grieving over something in the state of the world. Um, and that kind of grief and anger and frustration and everything is an appropriate response to anything that is outside how the Lord designed and intended things. And so it can be really far reaching. And so you can find yourself really grieving over things in our culture, things in our society, things that are happening in the world. And lament is truly it's an appropriate response. Like be recognizing, like as you know and love the Lord more and more, you're going to see more and more things that you go, this is outside God's intended good for his people, like, out of his intended good for this world, and, just naming those things that this should not be so, and there's something really powerful about that of just looking at the Lord and, like, naming it honestly of going, you know, "Lord, my friend was incredibly mean and unkind to me, and I'm deeply hurt and wounded.
Yeah.
Like, we should not be I should not have received that," right? Like,
Mhm.
that's like, it's taking it to the Lord and it's naming it, or it's naming Lord, there's this really ugly part of my character, and I keep doing these things, and I keep acting in these ways, and I hate it. I caused a lot of pain, and I didn't mean to, or I meant to. See, right? Sometimes you're going, like, there's a part of my character, and I meant to harm, I did, right?
Right. Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
that personal lament, but it's also perfectly appropriate to be
Mhm.
upset by the things that are outside of how God intended things, of going, "Lord, you don't intend for children to be starving," right? That war is always a tragedy. Every death of your people is goes against your will, so therefore, like, I can grieve over this, and taking it to the Lord, just being really honest about it, like, stating sometimes it's named, like, in the step of, like, stating your complaint.
Mhm.
And it's not really that you're, like, complaining to the Lord, but it's like, "Lord, I'm naming what shouldn't be so," right?
Mhm.
Either personally from, like, my fault or something that was happened to me, and just, like, taking some time to really dive down deep into the emotions about what you're, like, thinking and feeling, and you're taking them to the Lord because you know that He is big enough and strong enough and caring enough to handle it. And it's just, like, also it just, like, helps, like, bring your heart and your mind and your soul in alignment with the Lord because, like, as you're naming it, you're going, yeah, this is something that grieves you too.
Mhm.
And there's, like, this process, like, as you name it extremely honestly, like, other things start to, like, orient in your heart too, because then you can start to be like, "You know what? You intend for" say there's, like, a broken relationship, right? "You intend for us to be at peace with one another. You intend for us to be kind and loving and supportive, and, you know, this is what like, because you are those things, right? And like that's kind of like that next piece in a lament is that as you're able to fully process and name what is wrong, it draws you to the what is right. And that draws you into like these things that you know to be true about God's character. And like those are then becomes those things that you can really hold on to because you can go, you know what, Lord, my friend was unkind, but you are entirely kind. Like you are always kind to me. You know, that, you know, my friend betrayed me, you know, but Lord, you have never betrayed me. And in fact, like you came to help and sustain and heal me even when I was actively betraying you.
Mm.
Right? So, like, there's, like, these
So
things that, like,
good.
draws you into, like, this, like, sense of, like, who the Lord is, right? So you've turned your heart to the Lord, you've named what's wrong, and it draws you into what's right. And then spending some time and being like, "Lord, this is what you intended, right? This is what is good, and this is who you are." And then it just draws you to this place of, like, because you've been reminded of those things that are true,
Yeah.
like, the Lord invites you to make a big ask, like a big audacious ask, because you 'cause you'll notice this in most laments. In not all of them, most laments also have this, like, just this piece where the lamenter has this piece that they are desiring something deeply from the Lord. And sometimes the ask, you go, "That's a wild ask. That's a wild ask that you're making,"
Right.
and sometimes the Lord's response to your ask is gonna be no.
Sure.
Sometimes the Lord shows up in these amazing ways where you go, you know, and the audacious ask can be, "Lord, I don't see any way how this relationship can be fixed. Move in their hearts because I don't see any way forward, you know,
Mhm.
move in my heart because I don't have a softness towards them because, you know, I don't even wanna reconcile," or whatever the moment is. And but it can also be, like, huge audacious asks of you're grieving over a war that you feel is unjust and it's
Mhm.
causing pain to innocence, then you can ask the Lord to bring it to an end, to ask, you know, and, like, there's an element of you can make a big audacious ask, and there's something that feels so, like, bold and powerful of being like, "This is what I really want."
Yeah.
And, like, distilling it down into an ask feels very audacious, but it also is very trusting. And then you're able to, like, release it into his hands. And at the end of this, you kind of find, like, it might not be, like, this, like, magical, like, half an hour, but, like, every time I've, like, truly spent some, like, deep time in lament and I've done all of these things, I find myself just sort of in, like, a quiet spot.
Mm.
Like, it's not necessarily a less painful spot, but there's just sort of this quietness then in my soul of being able to be like, "Okay." Like, I feel like I've been heard, and I feel like I'm being sustained even while I'm still carrying a lot of pain. And it's weird because then you start to be able to experience joy, because
Mhm.
joy and pain are not,
Mhm.
incompatible, which
Mhm.
in our culture says that those 2 aren't.
Right.
Um, but you can sometimes be in still in immense pain, and starting to be able to experience the joy of the Lord of being able to go, "You know what? There's still goodness and beauty." Um, and be able to, like, really find those things even when going, "I'm still carrying this."
Yeah. So well said. So well said. That really will speak to people's hearts. I know it speaks to my heart. And what I'm hearing a lot in that, Catherine, is that there's like transformation that happen
Mhm,
in lament. Like you start off in one place, but your heart ends up in another place. Not necessarily your circumstances having been changed, but God has brought you through this journey and
mhm,
your heart has changed, and I love the idea of the pain and the joy commingling because I
mhm,
think you're right. Our culture I experience our culture as one that, very much wants to push away pain. I mean, you see that a lot in
mhm,
social media, highlight
mhm,
reels and whatnot. Um, we run from it and we're terrified of it.
mhm,
But the reality is with life comes a lot of tears, even as a Christian.
mhm,
Jesus was a man of sorrows, he was acquainted with grief, well acquainted.
mhm.
So, could you speak into, social media use? I feel like there's kind of a push against the reality
Mhm.
of the suffering, and how do we deal with that? You know?
Yeah. Oh, I feel like the tricky thing with, like, social media is that it ends up curating to kind of whatever your particular bent is, right? Because so for some people, they're gonna have your feed just be full of, like, all of these highlight reels of people being happy, like, very light, you know, kind of fluffy, beautiful, like, which is not, like, necessarily bad to spend time in, but
Sure.
it can lead to discontent, and it can also lead to, like, this sense of, like, if I'm not here, then somehow my life is wrong, you know?
Right.
But it can also, like, just be very distracting and being like, "I'm just gonna look at happy kitten pictures," and I'm just gonna, like, watch these videos of people doing silly things, because I don't wanna deal with the
Mhm.
hard and the heavy, um, and there's definitely space for taking some time to, like, because sometimes you can't sit in the hard and the heavy all the time because we
Sure.
would implode.
Yeah.
So, like, there is a sense where sometimes you need a distraction, but
Mhm.
there's, like, also more embodied ways of getting a distraction, right? Because it's like, um, in my grief journey, like, I mean, for your listeners, I've lost a son, um,
Yeah.
and, like, there are definitely days where it was like, I would call, like, a sister and be like, "I just need a distraction," right? Like, "I just need a day," and we'd meet up and go out to lunch or go get coffee or something because it's just sort of like, I need a reminder
Yeah.
that there's something outside of this, right?
Right.
Uh, so, like, some people's feeds are gonna be full of things that are just distracting them, kind of into the positive, and then there's other people whose, like, their natural tendency is going to want to kind of sit in the hard and to
Yeah.
sit in the hard feelings,
Mhm.
but social media doesn't necessarily give us anything to do with it,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so there's always another thing to lament, there's always another thing to grieve, there's always another thing to be angry about,
Yeah.
and so for other people that are gonna find their social media starting to curate in that direction of just
Mhm.
constantly seeing the hard, and it's also, like, not that not that you want to be ignorant about what's happening in the world, but there's only so much that you have capacity
Yeah.
to grieve, like, personally and to do anything about, and the problem is, like, when you sit and you see a lot of it, it can actually start to desensitize you from, like, feeling, like, any sense of action,
Mhm.
um and it can kinda start making you more callous to some things because it's like it can it can make the smaller hurts, insignificant to the point of going, "Well, it doesn't matter that this one kid experienced an injustice because all of these other children over here are experiencing a greater injustice." Well, no, this one kid's injustice is still injustice, and we should still and this one that's closer to home, I might actually have a way of doing something about it. Um, and so, like, it's because, like, if you're in either spot, if you're either in this, like, overwhelm if you're in this overwhelm of grief or if you're in the, like, "I don't wanna feel it," um, it doesn't really allow you to do anything with what you have. Um, and so there's, like, a sense of, like I think that with, like, social media, like, it's just needing to be thoughtful and careful of, like,
Mhm.
how am I guarding my soul, right? Like, am I using this as, like, a way of, like, a lighthearted distraction that I use periodically, and I would use it the same it's kind of a similar level for me as, like, watching a TV show or something, or is it something that I am actively turning to because I do not want to feel my feels, you know?
Yeah.
Or am I turning to it because I want to feel all the things and I want to stay in this, like, overwhelmed, like, just sort of, like, self-righteous place of being indignant,
Mm.
rather than being able to, like, name it, like, turn to the Lord and name it and go, "Lord, I'm just really burdened by," insert the thing that you're burdened by, and allowing yourself to really feel it and turn to the Lord, and then also to, like, turn what you're feeling to him, because sometimes we find at the end of, like, this process of lament, sometimes the Lord actually gives us an action item, right? Because sometimes on our heart,
Mhm.
you kinda feel the Lord be like, "Alright, and now you need to call the friend that you were unkind to," right? Or,
Yeah.
"Now you actually need to call the friend who was unkind to you because they don't actually know that they hurt me." Like,
Mm.
and so
Mhm.
I need to be the person who needs to reach out the hand of reconciliation even though I'm the wronged party. They don't know, because like, so sometimes you get to the end of the lament and the Lord asks something of us as well,
Mhm.
and so, I think that sometimes we use social media as a way of, like, kind of avoiding that responsibility of, um, like, the Lord uses embodied people for his that's how he works, he chooses to work through people, and so sometimes you get to the end of the lament, you've come more in aligned with the Lord, and the Lord goes, "And now here's your to-do list."
Yeah.
You know, and oftentimes it's like what like that's like that calm, quiet, speaking of the Holy Spirit going, "All right, well, you lamented about being unkind.
Yeah.
Mm, now you get to go say sorry.
That's right. That's right. That's so good, Catherine. So good. And I'm sure for my listeners, you will realize why she was one of my favorite Bible teachers, because it just you speak so well about these things, and I'm so thankful for that. You're absolutely right. I've had that experience before where I've lamented and I've realized I need to pick up the phone or I need to
Mhm,
make a coffee date and just say, "I'm sorry, I was wrong."
mhm.
So healthy for Christian relationships too, or just relationships in general. So,
And I think too, like, the beauty that I've experienced too in lament is that sometimes I've realized that the thing isn't the thing, right? The thing that I
yeah,
think that I'm so mad and worked up and hurt about, like, after spending some real time before the Lord and just, like, crying out to him, you kinda get to the end and you go, "Oh, I had really messed up expectations." Like, I was putting a lot of inappropriate, I was putting some of my identity onto how this person treats me, and, like, my identity needs to be rooted in the Lord and not whether or not this person I think is cool likes me or whatever the scenario is, right? And you get to this end and you sometimes you go, "Oh, I have another thing to lament." But,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
there's also this, like, clarity that can come where you go, "Oh, I am actually experiencing" like, part of why I was so mad at this friend for this ask, or so the reason that this hit me so wrong, or the reason whatever is that, there's a whole other thing that's going on that I didn't wanna admit, and then sometimes, like, just walking through the process of lament kinda gives you the space and the clarity to go, "I fought with my husband, but really it's because I'm overwhelmed with the children,"
sure.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
And, like, there's still an apology that needs to happen to the husband, but, it's going, "Oh, I'm experiencing overwhelm, so actually what I need to do is make an ask of, my husband and saying, 'Hey, can you take this piece on because I'm having a hard time being kind and doing this part of parenting,'"
yeah.
or whatever it is, right? And,
Mhm.
um, there's just a beauty in that too of going, "Oh, the thing I was so worked up at the beginning of this is actually just not a thing, and
Yeah.
here's, like, the real thing."
So great because you've got that engagement of the Holy Spirit and he's
Mhm,
speaking to you in that process. I mean, whenever we come to the Lord, that's what I'm hearing. And I think that really resonates with my heart too. I went through kind of a difficult season over the last couple years. And
mhm,
I realized as I lamented through some of those situations that I always called myself a people pleaser, but what it really was idolatry of people, and that came from, fear of disappointing people, abandonment, things of that nature, and realizing that the Lord never leaves us nor forsakes us, and that's what I need to be building my life on, not the fear of
mhm,
somebody leaving me or being disappointed in me. I dressed it up calling it people pleasing, but it was really idolatry, and that took some time
mhm,
for it to resonate in my own heart, but with that comes so much freedom because I realize that, I don't have to be perfect in relationships and that if I overstep or something, I can always ask for forgiveness and people can actually come to me and say, "Hey, I felt whatever by your action or inaction."
mhm.
It's just a closer walk with the Lord and more freedom in um those boundary lines. It's a psalm that talks about, "You've placed my boundary lines in pleasant places," and it's
Mhm.
just a really great place to live. So yeah.
Well, I also think there's, like, this space of, kind of taking us away from some of the prosperity gospel heresy,
Yeah.
that
Yes.
where it's like,
Yeah.
the Lord actually never promised that our lives would be easy. In
Mm-mm.
fact, He promised the opposite,
Yeah.
right? Like, and He promised that, like, everything that we experience is all also in the context of His return
Yeah.
and the Lord ultimately making all things right. And making all things good, and so there's, like, this sense too where it's like, we're experiencing all of this, and we're called to this work of reconciliation and of bringing the gospel to the nations, but also of, like, allowing him to work in our own hearts, but we have to keep all of it in the light of, like, that he's coming back, right? That there's a
Yeah.
time of we can lament these things that should not be so, and we can also hold this, like, hope of going, "And one day this will be right." right? And one
Yeah.
day this will be restored, and one day people will not harm each other, and one day all work um, will glorify the Lord and will be profitable and not just sort of getting to the end of the day being like, "Did I do anything useful today?" Right? Like, there will
Right.
be
Yes.
right? And so there's, like, the sense too of, like, everything that we're lamenting right now, it has an end date,
Yeah.
right? And we don't know what that date is, but there's also the sense of going, like, this process of lament, like, the Lord is here with us, right? He
Mhm.
is right here with us, and He is also lamenting, and not in the, like, regretting, but we're like, He's working it all out for good, and we don't know how that works precisely, but,
Mhm.
like, even the hardest parts of my story, like, I would never wish the hardest parts of my story onto my worst enemy, but at the
Yeah.
same time, I wouldn't ask the Lord to change it,
Mm.
right? Because of how He has used it, um
Yeah.
and so, like, there's just something so beautiful too about being able to be like, "Hey, we get to be part of this active thing that he is doing."
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and there's an end date of this work. This work of lament gets to will be done one day. There
Mhm.
will be a day where there is no more lament because there will be nothing more to lament. And that's just, like, a beautiful thing to kinda keep in that mind and that hope of, like, this world, you until the day you die, you will always have something to lament.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like, it would not be hard for me to think of things that spend I could spend profitable time lamenting today, like, right? Um, but there will be a day where the Lord will come down and He will wipe down every tear from every eye,
Yeah.
and there will be no more lamenting, and we will get to be in glory with Him doing beautiful things that are for His glory. I don't even have a concept. Right,
Right.
because so much of profitable work is, like, setting things right.
Yeah.
So, what will it look like to do profitable work when everything is right? Like, blows
Right.
my mind, right?
Exactly. It blows my mind too. Yeah. Yeah.
But it makes lament feel more worth it to me because it's not
Mhm.
just this pointless exercise that's going to happen. It will happen until the day I die, unless
Mhm.
the Lord returns before I die, which come Lord Jesus, right? But,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Maranatha, come Lord Jesus.
right?
Yeah.
But there's an element of going, "All right, at some point, there's an end date to lament. And until then, we can take it as the gift that it is, but it's a gift that is only going to be needed for a certain period of time."
Yeah. Amen to that, Catherine. I agree. And, I'll say this just to be a little bit bold today, but in my spirit, I really do believe that Jesus is coming sooner than what we maybe think.
It's like "Come today, I
Yeah.
would be so thrilled."
I would be so thrilled too. Yeah, absolutely. I so I remember I was working as a front desk receptionist. I had a few other jobs at that same time, but I received a message from a friend, a mutual friend of ours, saying to pray for your family because your baby had passed away. And I was in shock. I've known your family for many years. I've loved your
Mhm,
family. And we kind of run in some of the same circles. And I mean, I worked with your dad for a while. He was
mhm,
an amazing influence on my life for that short time that I worked with him. But I was shocked, and I had to look at that message many times to believe what I was reading.
mhm,
And so, your sweet Gordon had passed away.
mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's definitely one of those things of, like, I will lament his loss
yeah,
till the day I die, right? Um, it's like his birthday just passed, he would have been 12,
so sweet.
and,
Mm,
but there's, like, a sweetness in it of
mm,
that there's some things that we will be called, right, to lament. And the beauty about it is that as I walk through this, right, like I find it to be true, more and more true,
mm,
of going, there's such an invitation that the Lord is not annoyed that I'm still sad.
yeah,
Yeah. Um, and you could just feel you kind of get to practice like the things that are really hard. Like my friends who experience like chronic illness have talked about some of this too, of coming to the Lord with the same thing over and over,
mhm,
the same pain. The Lord doesn't take it away, but you get to experience Him there with you.
yeah,
Um, there's a real gift in that. And that's part of why I say that, like, um, I would never wish the loss of a child on anyone,
Never.
but I have gotten to walk in a special way with the Lord, um, and He has continued to prove Himself faithful,
Mhm.
and in ways that go beyond understanding, right? Like, I couldn't really explain what it's like. I find myself really drawn to the book of Job,
Yeah.
especially, like, the interactions between Job and the Lord, and, like, Job is a really great example of lament, right? Like, he's got fighting words for the Lord, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's a huge difference between Job and his friends, is that Job's friends are sort of just, like, talking amongst themselves, they're
Mm.
kind of fussing and complaining, right? And Job always addresses the Lord,
Mm.
right? And then the Lord really honors that lament, and He doesn't answer any of Job's questions.
Yeah.
Right, he doesn't answer any of the whys,
Mhm.
but he answers with, "I'm here and this is who I am."
Mhm. Mhm.
And Job is deeply comforted by that.
Yeah.
And I have found that to be super true in my own life, right? Where, like, the Lord never chastises Job for
No.
his whys,
Mm-mm.
but he is very much of like, "I need to pull you out of yourself and, like, let's reorient on me." But there's also such deep compassion of, like, the Lord shows up, like,
Right.
bodily for Job, right? And then also blesses him.
Mhm.
And I've received blessings of, I had 2 more children after Gordon passed, right? And there's just sort of this element of they don't replace him,
Mhm.
but there was a sweetness of getting to experience motherhood after loss,
Yeah.
of getting to go, of getting to walk through it, and the Lord used it to change some things of I parent differently now that
Mhm.
I've walked through loss,
Mhm.
and I think the process of grief and lament, like, the Lord, like, really used it, and He showed up and showed me who He was and showed places that I was out of alignment with His character, and, like, that's one of those things that I also lament of, like, man, Catherine pre-loss, there were
Mm.
some things about her that were really hard, and the Lord has really changed that about me, and it's just the process of having to, like, constantly have this pain. And it's been a very softening experience for me
Mhm.
of,
Mhm.
I've had to rely on other people. I've had to rely on the Lord because there's been, like, those things of being able to go, like, I have limitations and being to accept them, um, but also to go, "Lord, I truly need you to get through this day because my other kids have things that they need from me, and what I want to do in my own self is just to crawl in bed," and the Lord being like, "Here's enough strength to go get through the day." And it's like and there's definitely times we get to the end of the day and go, "That today was okay. Today was okay because the Lord was in it."
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing, Catherine. I remember I never met Gordon, but I just remember seeing pictures and I when first was just so stunned at the message, I was also amazed at the way that you and your husband and your family as a whole walked through that loss and continue to even to today. Give glory to the Lord, and I appreciate your honesty and your transparency so much. That ministers to my heart. I know it will minister to other people's hearts for sure.
Mm,
So, and I look forward to the day where, you will be with your sweet Gordon again.
mhm.
It'll be an incredible reunion, won't it?
Oh,
Oh,
so excited.
yeah.
And
Oh,
he got to have perfect parenting, right? He got
he
to be there
did, he did.
throughout the entire experience, so
Yeah, he absolutely did. Yeah, he did. I know
Mhm,
he'll be so proud of his mama for sure.
mm. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Catherine, is there anything else that you would like to share today? This is jam-packed full of great well, it's great teaching. I mean, you have the gift of teaching, clearly. You come from a family of teachers and preachers, and so you clearly have that. But you also have a compassionate heart,
Mm,
which makes you just rare, and
mhm,
I'm so thankful to know you. I'm so thankful for your family, how the Lord has, just walked you through this and continues to write your story, and I appreciate so much you sharing. Is there anything else that you would like to say about lament today?
I think the I think the biggest thing that makes lament really scary for people
Yeah.
is, like, it really will show kind of, like, how you view God himself.
Mm,
Um, and, like, if you have, like, this sense that the Lord is constantly angry at you, or that the Lord is disappointed in you, or that the Lord is really just, like, trying to find ways to, like, you know, call you out or, like, chastise you, right? It makes it really hard to trust him with lament. Um, and so I think that it's really helpful for me to remember that the Lord cannot actually be disappointed in you,
mm,
um, because disappointment has to do with unmet expectations, and the Lord knows exactly who you are, right? Like,
yeah.
even more so than you know who you are, right? Like, the Lord knows every single thing about you, and he
Mhm.
loves you, right? Like, the Lord is right there with you, and the Lord it's like so I often have, like, the image of lament of, a toddler that's had a hard day, right?
Mhm, mhm,
Like, went to 2 stores too many, and the snack was wrong, and my shoes don't feel good, right? They've
mhm.
just lost it, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen, like, that two-year-old be, like, picked up by their daddy
Mm,
and just absolutely wailing, losing their mind, right?
yeah. Yeah.
And the daddy is just able to just sit there and be like, "Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
Let's go get a snack."
Ugh.
Right? But, like, the toddler can't even go get a snack until they get the wailing out, right?
Mhm.
So, like, when you're lamenting, you're being held by the most perfect, calm, regulated, like, peaceful daddy who just wants you to get it all out so that
Mhm.
he can give you what you need, right? And so it's like it's one of those things of, like, if you're finding lament really scary, like, you picture the sweetest daddy you have ever seen taking care of an out of control toddler.
Mhm.
And that is the Lord with you, right? And you can be the out of control toddler and you can wail and cry and scream because you cannot hurt him, right? You can't hurt his feelings,
Mhm.
right? Like, and you can take it all to him and then he's going to help you make it right,
Mm.
right? And it's so like just like having like in the image of like the Lord is not sitting there trying to like grade your lament, right? The toddler isn't worried about what they're saying, right? And they sometimes even say wild things to their parent.
Right, right.
And and at the end of it, the parent's
Yeah.
like, "I love you.
Oh,
Well, you know,
yeah.
let's go get a drink." Like,
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's actually a joy, I think. I remember, when my boys were toddlers, a joy to be able to hold them in their sorrow or their frustration or what have you, and walk with them through that and help them get to the other side. Ah,
yeah. Oh, and just like that joyful moment as a parent of being able to look at a kid and be like, "You feel better now?"
yeah,
Right? And just like,
right.
it's I mean, sometimes I did it exasperated, but the Lord was always perfectly
Sure.
patient, right? And he was like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
"Hey, it feels better now?" And
Yeah.
you're like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I feel better.
yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, I feel better for that. Thank you." And I mean, not that the toddler always says thank you, but like
Sure.
but I
Absolutely.
do think that it's helpful to have that image of, like, rather than stern judge or,
Mhm.
like or disappointed father or, like, some of these other images that we have in our head, like, those I don't wanna lament to those people. I'm not gonna go lament to the judge, right? But I will
Absolutely.
go lament to daddy,
Yeah.
right? Like, I will pour out my soul to daddy
Mm.
in a way that I will not to, you know, supreme king of the universe. Like,
Yes. Yes.
it happens to be all of those things at the same time, but there is
Sure,
an
sure.
element of
Yeah.
like, you have the same safety and invitation of part of why the toddler completely loses it is because they know they're safe.
Yeah. So
So that's
good. Catherine, thank you. I'm gonna carry that picture with me, and I hope that our viewers will too. Yeah, this has been wonderful. This has been wonderful. I thank you so, so much.
yeah,
Yeah,
this is definitely it's one of those things of it's near and dear to my heart because it has truly been life-saving, right? Of
yeah,
that it you know, walking through really hard things with lament can be the difference between, like, the ability to choose hope and joy kind of in a defiant way,
yeah,
versus finding yourself in despair. And it really sometimes lament is the only way to claw your way out of despair as well.
yeah. I agree. So good. Thank you so, so much.
You're welcome. This was a joy.
Me too. Okay, we'll stay in touch.
All right.
Okay,
Bye,
bye.
Kathy.